Certain childhood memories remained etched in my mind with terrifying clarity. One particular incident from summer 2013 still haunts me. I was 10 when my family rented a secluded cabin near Rocky Mountain National Park, hoping to escape Denver's bustle. The first day passed peacefully, hiking Bear Lake, identifying animal tracks, roasting marshmallows under the stars. But on the second night, everything changed. At 2 a.m. I woke, needing the bathroom. Peering through the hallway window, I saw him. A motionless figure in a white mask with hollow black eyes, standing just beyond the porch. Frozen in terror, I watched as his head tilted slowly toward me. My parents dismissed it as a nightmare, until morning revealed footprints outside. That night, the tapping began. Soft knocks against the living room window. When my father pulled back the curtain, the masked man stood inches away, staring. We fled immediately, driving through darkness to a motel, never speaking of it again. Years later, forests still unsettle me. That blank white face lingers in my mind, a reminder of the unseen watchers lurking just beyond the glass. Another unsettling experience unfolded in 2014, when a grieving mother and her daughter sought solace in a Montana cabin. He or Cliff arrived unannounced, leaving firewood and uneasy silence. But midnight brought footsteps on the porch, an unlatched door, and a stranger's wet duffel bag on the couch. By dawn, it had vanished, along with Cliff's firewood. Cigarette butts and crushed cans outside the child's window confirmed their fear. They weren't alone. They left before sunrise, spotting Cliff and another man watching from the clearing. Authorities never provided answers, only refunds and hollow reassurances. Then there was the lakeside cabin in Olympic National Forest, where a stranded cyclist named Ethan begged shelter from the rain. Kindness turned to violation when he returned silently at 3 a.m., stealing through an open window as the homeowners slept. Security footage captured him pressed against the pantry door, close enough to touch, before vanishing into the woods with their belongings. Police recognized his pattern, friendly encounters preceding thefts. But he remained uncatchable, a shadow on two wheels. Each story shares a chilling thread. The violation of safety, the fragility of locks and trust, and the lingering question: who was really watching? Whether masked figures, uninvited hosts, or thieves cloaked in courtesy, these encounters leave scars no refund can erase. Some mysteries refuse resolution, echoing in the creak of floorboards or the shape of a distant tree at night. The only certainty? Not all who knock mean well, and some don't knock at all. The woods have a way of playing tricks on the mind. Shadows stretch unnaturally between the trees, branch, eskrig with no wind to move them, and sometimes the silence itself feels like a presence, something holding its breath just out of sight. I once met a park ranger who told me about a hiker who vanished near Lake Crescent. The man's tent was found still standing, his sleeping bag unrolled, a half-drunk cup of coffee gone cold on a stump. Search teams combed the area for weeks, but the only trace was a single boot print pressed deep into the mud near the shoreline, as if something had dragged him in with tremendous force. The ranger's voice dropped when he admitted the strangest detail. The print faced toward the water. Then there was the couple who rented an A-frame in the Catskills last winter. They swore they heard scratching inside the walls at night. Not the skittering of mice, but something heavier, deliberate. On their third evening, the wife woke to find the bedroom door slightly ajar, frost creeping across the floor in jagged lines despite the roaring fireplace. When they checked the security feed the next morning, the camera had cut out at 2:17. Yetting, but not before capturing a blurred shape crouched on the roof, peering through the skylight. They left before noon, never bothering to unpack. And of course, there are the places that don't want to be found. An old hunter in Wyoming once told me about a cabin he stumbled upon as a boy. A rotten, sagging thing, tucked into a gully where no cabin should be. The door hung open, swaying in a breeze that didn't exist. Inside, the table was set for a meal that never came. Plates layered with dust, a fork until clenched in a skeletal hand. He ran and never looked back. But decades later, he admitted he sometimes dreams of that fork scraping against porcelain in the dark. Maybe that's the real lesson. Not every door should be opened. Not every voice in the trees deserves an answer. And when the night goes still, too still, that's when you lock the windows, double-check the latch, and pray whatever's out there keeps walking. Because some things don't just watch, they wait. There are places where the line between the living and the forgotten grows thin, where the woods don't just whisper, they remember. Take the old ranger station up near Boundary Waters, abandoned when the new one was built in the 80s. Locals claim that if you hike out there in October, you'll sometimes find the wood stove lit, the windows glowing amber against the early dark. But when you knock, the door swings open to reveal nothing but cold ash and decades of dust. They say the last ranger station there didn't quit. He simply stopped coming out one morning. His coffee cup still sits on the desk, the stain at the bottom long since turned to powder. Or the stretch of Route 9 in Vermont, where drivers report seeing a woman in a soaked wedding dress standing beneath the same pine tree every November. She never speaks, just stares at the pavement with eyes that reflect headlights a second too late. State troopers have filed a dozen reports, but no nays ever found tire marks in the mud, no missing bride in the archives. Just the tree, the road, and the certainty that if you stop to ask if she needs help, your car won't start again until dawn. Then there are the things that follow you home. A woman in Oregon once mailed me a Polaroid taken in her backyard. In it, her golden retriever is mid-bark, fur bristled, staring at something just beyond the frame. But when you tilt the photo toward light, the trees behind the dog show dozens of pale, elongated shapes, too tall to be people, too still to be anything else. She swore they started appearing in every picture taken after sunset. By the time she moved, she'd stopped looking out windows after dark altogether. The truth is, we build fences and deadbolts and streetlights to convince ourselves we've tamed the wild. But the wild remembers. It waits in the static between radio stations, in the way your dog growls at an empty hallway, in the nightmares you can't quite recall but wake from sweating. So, when you hear footsteps matching yours a second too late on a lonely trail, or catch a face in the window that wasn't there when you turned around, don't investigate, don't call out, just walk faster. And whatever you do, don't look back. There are nights when the world doesn't feel quite right, when the air sits too still, when the crickets fall silent mid-chirp, when your skin prickles without reason. That's when you know something is watching from just beyond the tree line. I remember a story a trucker once told me at a diner outside Flagstaff. He'd pulled over near Black Canyon to relieve himself when he noticed something odd about the guardrail. Deep gouges in the metal, like something massive had dragged itself over. As he zipped up, his headlights caught movement in the ravine below. At first, he thought it was a bear standing on its hind legs, until it turned, the way he described its face, like someone stretched skin over a skull 2 sizes too big. It still makes my hands shake when I think about it. He didn't stop driving until he hit Phoenix, left his rig idling at the depot, and never took that route again. Then there are the things that live in our homes without us knowing. A family in Tennessee kept finding their furniture rearranged overnight. Chairs facing walls, kitchen knives laid in perfect circles on the floor. They installed cameras, only to watch the footage in horror as shadowy figures emerged from the walls after midnight, moving silently through rooms. The worst part? The shadows always paused to watch the sleeping children before continuing their eerie work. The family moved out, but the new owners reported the same occurrences within weeks. Some places are simply wrong. There's a stretch of woods in upstate New York where compasses spin uselessly and GPS displays only static. Hikers report feeling. They watched, hearing whispers in languages they don't recognize. Those who venture too deep often emerge hours later with no memory of what happened, their clothes inside out and their pockets filled with smooth black stones. The Park Service stopped investigating after 2 rangers quit following an overnight patrol where they swear the trees moved when they weren't looking. Perhaps most chilling are the stories of doppelgangers. A woman in Seattle answered her door to find herself standing on the porch. Same face, same clothes, same voice, asking to be let in. When she screamed, her double simply tilted its head and smiled before walking backward into the night. She moved apartments the next day, but swears she sometimes sees her own face peering through windows during thunderstorms. The world is far stranger than we allow ourselves to believe. Those odd moments we dismiss, the figure that disappears when you blink, the voice that whispers your name in an empty house, the nightmares that leave tangible bruises. These aren't tricks of the mind. They're glimpses through the cracks in reality. Reminders that we share this world with things that don't follow our rules. So tonight, when you hear that faint scratching at your window, ask yourself, is it really just the wind? And more importantly, do you really want to know? The most unsettling truths are the ones we can't explain. The ones that slip through the cracks of logic, like shadows under a door. Might be the case of the missing hikers in the Superstition Mountains. Search teams found their campsite perfectly intact. Sleeping bags unzipped, a pot of stew still warm over the ashes of their fire. But the strangest detail? Their boots were lined, but up neatly by the tent. Socks still tucked inside, as if whatever took them had given them time to undress first. Or the farmhouse in rural Nebraska, where every mirror shattered simultaneously at 3:17 AE. The family woke to find every reflective surface, even their television screen, webbed with cracks. But when they tried to photograph the damage, their phones captured only clear, unbroken glass. The repairman who came the next day refused to step inside after his tools started vibrating in his toolbox. He left without a word, and the family swears they saw him praying in his truck before speeding away. Then there are the things that shouldn't exist, but do. The diver who swore he touched a submerged statue in Lake Michigan, a smooth stone face with hollow eyes. Far deeper than any known wreckage. When he returned with cameras, the face was gone, but his footage showed something worse. Dozens of identical stone figures standing in perfect rows across the lake bed, all facing upward. The video cut out as the first one blinked. And who can explain the whisper tunnels of West Virginia? Certain hollows in the mountains, scary voices that aren't there. Truckers report hearing children laughing from empty ravines, or a woman singing in a language that twists the stomach. One driver pulled over, following what sounded like his mother's voice calling for help, only to find his CB radio broadcasting static from 3 states away. Perhaps most chilling are the accounts from night shift workers. The security guard who watched a figure crawl across the parking lot on all fours, its movements too fluid to be human. The nurse who saw a patient stand up in bed after flatlining, their mouth moving in perfect sync with the heart monitor's flatline tone. The convenience store clerk who rang up the same pale customer 3 nights in a row, only to learn the man had died in that store's bathroom a week earlier. We tell ourselves these are just stories, that there's always a rational explanation, but deep down we know better. The world is older than we understand, and some things linger in the corners of our vision for a reason. So the next time you feel that inexplicable chill or catch a shape moving just beyond the light's edge, remember, curiosity is how we learn, but survival? That's knowing when to stop looking. The night holds secrets that daylight can't erase. There's a stretch of Highway 190 in Death Valley where truckers report seeing a second moon hanging low on the horizon, pale and pockmarked, but all wrong. It moves when you try to focus on it, sliding behind hills that aren't tall enough to hide it. Park rangers dismiss it as heat mirages, but the old-timers at the diner in Furnace Creek won't sit near the windows after dark. They say, sometimes that second moon blinks. In the Ozarks, they tell of sinkholes that don't follow geology's rules. A farmer once watched his entire cornfield collapse in perfect silence. Not a rumble, not a single stalk cracking. When surveyors lowered lights into the pit, their beams reflected off something smooth and curved, hundreds of feet down, like the roof of a buried cathedral. The hole filled with brackish water overnight, and now locals avoid it, especially when the surface ripples without wind. Then, there are the things that wear familiar faces. A librarian in Portland documented 17 cases of the Patrona Man in a brown overcoat, who requests books about traumatic deaths, always returning them exactly 3 days later with certain passages underlined, in what forensics confirmed was the victim's own blood. The handwriting matches perfectly. The police stopped investigating when they realized the underlined passages all described murders that hadn't happened yet. And what of the children's drawings found taped to abandoned buildings across the Rust Belt? Always the same crude figure, tall with too many joints in its arms, standing beside a house that doesn't exist in any zoning records. Social workers collected hundreds before noticing the terrifying pattern. Every child who drew it disappears within a year. The drawings keep appearing, though. Now they're signed with names no one can trace. Perhaps most disturbing are the echo people reported in coastal Maine. Fishermen swear they sometimes see duplicates of themselves, hauling nets on adjacent boats, identical down to their scars and tattoos. Except their eyes are solid black. They never speak, just mirror movements with a half-second delay. The phenomenon always precedes bad weather, and old sailors claim if your double ever makes eye contact, you won't survive the storm. We build our lives on the assumption that reality is stable, that the rules don't change, but sometimes the universe reminds us how thin the veil really is. In the way shadows pool too darkly in certain corners, how electronics glitch near ancient burial grounds, why animals refuse to enter some rooms. So when you wake at 3 a.m. to the sound of something breathing just behind your head, when your reflection lingers a moment too long after you turn away, when you feel an unseen hand brush your shoulder in a crowd, remember, the world is vaster and stranger than we're meant to understand, and some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. The deeper you dig into the unexplained, the more the ground shifts beneath your feet. There are phenomena that defy logic, encounters that leave permanent marks on the psyche, and places where the fabric of reality wears dangerously thin. Consider the case of the borrowed faces in rural Japan. Villagers speak of strangers who arrive during festivals, wearing the exact likenesses of deceased townspeople, not as masks, but as living, breathing replicas. They move through crowds with unsettling precision, mimicking mannerisms down to the way great-grandmother Soja used to adjust her glasses. The most disturbing account comes from a midwife who recognized her own dead daughter in one such visitor. When she reached out, the thing wearing her child's face whispered, "We only borrow what's remembered too well," before vanishing into the smoke of festival lanterns. Then there's the phenomenon of the hungry houses scattered across Eastern Europe. Certain abandoned homes develop peculiar appetites. Maintenance workers report finding tools embedded in walls, like fossils in stone, slowly being absorbed. A photographer documenting one such property in Romania swears his tripod legs sank 6 inches into the floorboards during a 30-minute exposure. The worst cases occur when squatters attempt renovations. Their improvements are always rejected. Paint peels overnight. New pipes cough up black sludge, and replaced floorboards are always found stacked neatly in the basement come morning, as if the house itself is putting things back where they belong. Perhaps most chilling are the night teachers reported by isolated communities in the Andes. Children wake speaking dead languages fluently, their small fingers tracing symbols older than written history. One Quechua grandmother described finding her grandson awake at dawn, teaching his teddy bear grammar from a tongue extinct for millennia. When asked, the boy claimed his night teacher was a tall woman who smelled of wet stone and whose mouth didn't move when she spoke. Linguists have authenticated several cases, but all attempts to document these lessons fail. Recording devices capture only static, and the children remember nothing by sunrise. Modern cities have their own breed of mysteries. Construction crews in Chicago have been quietly reporting the basement problem since the 1990s. Certain older buildings have sublevels that don't appear on blueprints, accessible only when specific elevators are called at particular times. The spaces are always empty, except for a single item: a rotary phone ringing with no cord, a chair facing a blank wall, a mirror that reflects the room behind you rather than what stands before it. Maintenance workers whisper about the cleaners, figures in outdated uniforms who emerge from these spaces during power outages, polishing surfaces no one can see. The digital world offers no refuge from the inexplicable. There's the infamous 404 highway, a phantom route that appears intermittently on GPS systems, always leading to the same abandoned gas station in Nevada. Those who follow the directions report losing hours, their car interiors smelling suddenly of ozone and old books. The station's single working pump dispenses liquid that's clear and odorless, but makes engines run silent as ghosts for exactly 13 miles before conking out permanently. Perhaps we're not meant to understand these things. The human mind evolved to recognize patterns, but some patterns recognize us back. That itch between your shoulder blades when you're alone in a museum after hours. The way your dog growls at a particular patch of empty hallway. The phone call from your own number that leaves no ring stored in your logs. These aren't glitches, they're reminders. The world is not what we think it is, and whatever shares it with us is always watching. The truth is, we walk through this world like children holding flashlights in a vast, dark room. The circle of light gives us comfort, lets us pretend we know the shape of things. But just beyond that fragile glow, the shadows move in ways that defy explanation. Perhaps that's for the best. Some mysteries weren't meant to be solved, only survived. So when the hair rises on your neck for no reason, when the night holds its breath a moment too long, when you catch something in the corner of your eye that shouldn't be there, turn up the lights, hold someone's hand, and whatever you do, don't look behind you.